What's happening, everybody? It's your man Damon Cunningham, aka Dame D NYDC. And as you can tell, tonight we live because the Gremlins is just doing whatever they want to do, but it's okay. We're here to actually have fun, and sometimes when you're here to have fun and really talk about elevating, and talking about elevating through education and powerful angles. That's what tonight's conversation is really all about. It's going to be filled with purpose, resilience, empowerment. And I have three, returning guests who were all here on the show in the past on their own. But these three women are three of the most phenomenal individuals that I've had the pleasure to actually sit down and share a mic with. So, what we've done here in 2026 is really bring these three women together. And tonight is just real about real talk meeting transformation. We're going to ask a question, that really I think cuts deep. And it's about, are you surviving, when you were most meant to thrive? So think about that. All right. In a world that's moving fast and taking no prisoners, too many of us are just getting by. But guess what? Not tonight. Tonight, we're breaking out of survival mode and we're stepping boldly into purpose. Tonight, I'm joined by, like I said, three of the most phenomenal voices who embody what thriving truly looks like. Yeah, I'm going to bring to the stage our guest tonight, Dr. Shawnise Carter, who's going to guide us through healing and purpose. Leann Herron, who's going to be sharing her powerful strategies for resilience. And last but not least, Miss Erica Vanessa, who's going to really help us elevate personally and expand our impact. Ladies, thank you for joining me this evening. How are you all doing this tonight?
Thank you for having us. That was a great introduction. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I really had time to really, think about this. And I think that's the pleasure for this one. When you really have something and you have some people that you've been blessed to have in your life and really bring a shine to three different aspects and to bring them together, I think this is really, really important. But before we get started and really dive in, I kind of want to open up and just really, I don't want to do your introductions because I want to allow you to speak for yourselves because I could do it. You guys are thicker than a phone book. So I want to start with, down at my bottom here, my bottom left, Dr. Shawnise Carter, please take a moment, if you will, to just kind of give us a reintroduction, if you will, of who you are and what you do.
So I will start off by saying I am a child of God. I am a wife. I'm a mom of five. I'm a speech pathologist. I have my clinical doctorate in speech pathology, 21 years of experience in the field, and I am an author. So just recently authored a book a few years ago called My Hero Story, God's Glory, How to Overcome Betrayal, Delay, and Loss.
Man, see, I'm telling y'all in the audience, I see you coming in the door. Go ahead, say hi, let us know where you coming from in the comments. Sit back, relax, get your cup of tea, get your coffee, whatever it is. Because I mean, we just getting started. And I'm gonna move to my bottom right here. Leann, please take a moment to reintroduce yourself, if you will, to our audience tonight. And Leann, did I lose you? Did I look like Leann might be in the matrix? Looks like we might have lost her for a second. She looks like she's frozen. While we wait for Leann to come back, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pass the mic to the elegant Erica Vanessa. Erica, please take a moment to reintroduce yourself to our audience, please.
Well, thank you, Damon. Hi, I'm Erica Vanessa. I am the personal development curator and strategist. I'm a midwife of purpose. I'm the CEO and founder of Becoming Consulting Firm. I think my lane is identity, clarity, and authenticity. I specialize in differentiation. I truly believe that sits at the seat of moving forward. And if you know who you are, you'll know where you're going. And if you know where you're going, you'll know how to differentiate yourself to sustain that position in life.
Ooh-wee. I look, I that was so well said, so eloquent. Uh, I got chills and goosebumps because I need to get my life together and I need to get myself in the right space to get to where I need to go. So I thank you for sharing that. I don't know if Leann has made it back. It looks like we've kind of lost her at the moment. We're gonna go ahead and continue to move on. And when she comes back, we'll definitely give her a moment to give her shine to our audience. But I do want to really just kind of jump in. Um, Kind of, if you could, ladies, I want to start like just with a snapshot of your journey and what really inspired you to begin your journey, in your field, and what was a pivotal turning point, if you will, that really helped you kind of say, and really apply it to your current mission, where you are and what you're working on. And Erica, I'm gonna start with you.
Well, the long story short is what inspired me in becoming is the end of my marriage. I
Mm.
remember that I'm a church girl. I'm a big God girl. Damon knows, and if you know now, now you know. Um, so obviously, a big church girl. You grow up in church. You just assume that you're always going to be married, but that wasn't my story. And I had to redefine myself after the marriage broke up. And long story short, I remember the day I told one of my favorite cousins, my eldest favorite cousin, she said to me some words that I knew then and now that she meant well. But she said to me, she said, "Don't worry, you're a pretty girl or you're beautiful, something like that. You'll find someone else." And so I remember going inside and I remember just starting to cry because I was like, "Well, God, is that all I have? Am I
Mm.
just pretty? I mean, God forbid, somebody throw acid in my face. I guess I'm done for. I don't know what to do at this point. And
Right.
so it started me down a journey where I realized I have to have more than what people can see when I walk through a door. I have to have more to lend to an atmosphere than my outward appearance, than what I look like, than what the clothes that I'm wearing. It was important. And so I had to redefine myself again and find out what were the highs and the lows, the important things about me that God wanted to highlight, so that
Mm.
when I walked into a room, I wasn't just candy or a pretty face, but I was actually giving depth to the
Mm.
rooms that I was entering into. People were able to say I was happy that she came, as opposed to, "Oh, I like your outfit."
That's powerful to be noticed for who you are and not what you are, and I think that's huge. And Leanne, I'm sorry the gremlins got a hold of you, but we're glad that you made it back. And I just want to, before we continue, I want to step back and I want to allow you to as well. One, give us a little intro or reintroduction of who you are, and the work that you're doing, and transition into this question really, which is kind of give us a snapshot of your journey. What inspired you to begin, and was there a pivotal turning point that really, now that you was like an aha moment that you've been able to apply to your current mission?
Great. Thank you so much. Yeah, I don't know. The gremlins just came alive and I was gone. So thank you for having me. I'm Leann Herron. I'm a certified life and health coach. And my journey really started in 2019. I was working for a large law firm right before COVID hit. And when COVID hit, so many other law firms were closing their doors or people were working from home. And so our firm had received this really large influx of cases. And one case in particular just happened to be a personal trauma trigger for me. And I had never really experienced trauma in the sense that it affected everything about me. It affected, I was having brain fog and memory loss and anxiety and panic. And I had never experienced all those things because I had spent a lifetime kind of pushing down, denying, or ignoring my trauma. And so it hit a point where I was no longer able to deny it or ignore it. And I went to my supervisors and requested an accommodation. And unfortunately, we were a small firm, and so my accommodation was denied. And eventually, I had to make the decision to resign my position. Working in law had been my career for 13 years, but I realized that I had put my mental health and my physical health on the back burner for long enough, and my body was letting me know that it was time to take it seriously and to listen. And so I resigned my position, spent a year really focusing on my mental health and my physical health and working with a therapist and other alternative medicine practitioners. And that's where I really learned about the importance of self-care and living intentionally and just learning about my body in a way that I never had before. And that propelled me to want to help others because I felt like I had just kind of lived under this rock of being a wife and a mom and a career woman and working in the corporate world, and had never learned things like having a full cup and being able to give to others from a full cup, as opposed to just being that people pleaser who always put others first. And so it just became a time where now I had learned all these wonderful modalities that I knew nothing about. And so I really wanted to share that information with others. And I kind of stumbled across getting certified as a life and health coach. And that was kind of the answer and the path to my calling to help others by teaching them about these modalities and about the importance of self-care.
You do a great job. I've taken time to tune in and watch the show, and you have amazing guests, and you tell great stories that really actually touch on exactly what you just shared in this brief introduction. And I cannot let this introduction go without allowing Dr. Shawnise Carter, another phenomenal individual. Dr. Shawnise, please go ahead and take a moment to share the same. Take a moment to share a snapshot of your journey and what pivotal turning point that was like an aha moment for you to be able to apply into your current mission.
Well, that's a loaded question because I feel like I am always having pivotal moments. But starting off as a speech pathologist, I got into this field just because I wanted to help people. I learned about it from my best friend's mother who worked in a hospital. And she said, you all should check out speech pathology. And she sat us down. We were seniors getting ready to graduate from high school. And what's funny is none of my other friends remember this conversation but me. I'm the only one who remembers the conversation even taking place. And when I first got to college, I did an introduction to speech pathology course, did not like it. Ended up transferring to an HBCU, Tennessee State University, where I wanted to go always. And took a class again there and just really fell in love with the field. I felt like it embodied everything that I am, who I was at that point. I always felt like I knew that I wanted to help people, and I always knew that I wanted to be in business for myself. And all of my family members, especially my older brother, would say that I love talking. So it's
Mhm.
no wonder that I went into a field, but I just really like knowing that I contributed to someone's success in some type of way. So,
And you do a great job, and that really leads me to really kind of get into a question, because I know from our past conversation, you being on, you spoke about a hero story, as a wife, a mother of five, if I remember correctly.
yes.
A professional in SLP, author, speaker. Like, I have to ask, because I think this kind of ties in, or kind of ties through this story and conversation. What was your biggest rock bottom moment? Because I think we all have experienced that at some point. But what was that biggest bottom moment, and how did you, work to choose to heal? Because I
Yeah.
think that's another very important aspect, is going through these trials and traumas and then being able to heal. So what was that like for you?
Yeah, I like your choice of words, because healing is a choice, right? You do
Hmm.
have to at least take those initial steps and work on getting into a better place, emotionally, physically, spiritually, all of those things, financially. So for me, it was, I had a business, private practice, went into business with some business partners initially, and ended up, the business ended up failing. So I
Hmm.
had some partners kind of betray me and, do some things. And it worked out for the better, because I was able to then continue my business on my own. But there was a point when the state changed their reimbursement. I'm in healthcare. And so
Hmm.
whenever we deal with people, we're dealing with their insurances. And so we are, at the liberty of whoever that governing body is. And as they change those laws, it ends up putting people in very compromising situations. And so financially, I got to a point where I'm just like, I'm giving my services for free. I'm not making any money on my own. This is no longer a business, and I had to come to the decision to close my doors. And for
Hmm.
me, that felt like the biggest failure, because
Mm.
I never saw myself not being successful in business. That was just always my
Right.
goal. So once I got there, I never saw anything different. And I
Mm.
think for most people, when you go into something that it may be a dream of yours, you don't see yourself failing, And so for
That's right.
me, I consider that a failure. And I
Mm.
had to really um, go through all of the pieces, the things that got me in that situation. I really had to do some internal reflecting and figure out, how did I get here? What is the purpose of this? And
Right.
that has always been like a recurring question, or a theme. I'm like, why am I going through this? Like, what is the purpose of this? What am I supposed to learn through this experience?
Hmm. I like that, because I think we all, and I'm watching Leann and Erica, as they, I see the nod and the heads, and like, I see lights going off. But through that, right, the purpose of trying to heal,
Mhm.
Leann, I want to ask you, because then there's that, you have to have some type of resilience, right, to be able to deal and cope with. Here's the healing, but now what's the resilience part? And I want to ask you, I recall talking with you, and sometimes, and I don't know if I'm right or wrong, but this is how I feel. Resilience sometimes is glamorized, right? So from your perspective, and what you do a lot of times, what does resilience really look like, especially in those, long seasons, like when you just hit that long rut and you're butting your head up against that wall, like, and how do we avoid that burnout process too? Because then there's that comes through that, going through that whole process, right?
Well, I think for me, one thing that I realized was I had my own definition of resilience, which to me meant that no matter what I was hit with, I could push through it and continue to function and show up every day for my kids, for my family, for my job. And I think that resilience is sometimes wrongfully glamorized as being, this consistent, silent strength. And to me, what I learned through all of this, I named my company Finding Resilience, because through my journey, I thought that I had lost my resilience. All of a sudden, I was drowning in this brain fog and memory loss. And I thought, what happened? Normally, I can just push this down and keep on going. But all of a sudden, I couldn't anymore. So I think a lot of that was my own definition of resilience. And so learning that it's more of a quiet capacity to kind of adapt and bend and be able to endure these long, challenging seasons by developing tools that help you grow your resilience. And those were tools that I didn't have. The tools I had was shove it down, deny it, and ignore it.
Man, so I love that, because that was part of your healing process, and that's why I'm hoping everybody's following along. We're going through this healing journey, and we're going through this resilience and finding and trying to adapt and learn these tools. But for Erica, I want to ask you, for someone who has healed or is healing, kind of like how we started with Dr. Carter and her story, right? And now wants to lead, because this is where we want to take it full circle with someone like yourself as a leader and wants to scale and have impact. Like, what mindset or structural change do you feel maybe is needed or essential, for a woman or anyone, to be able to go ahead and continue that evolution?
Let me see how I can synopsize this as best as I can. So
Come on,
what
give
I'll
it now.
say
Just give it.
is, I honestly believe, and I know I'm probably going to sound like a broken record, but identity is everything. If you know who you are, it will answer the question to how you show up.
Wow.
The why becomes important in you remaining in the room. The why becomes important in you remaining in the fight. So when you know who you are, you kind of become your own cheerleader of, well, I can't give up because I'm not here for nobody else but me. Like I'm here because I'm answering the call on my own life. I know what I've been through. I know how much it's hurt. I know how much I've suffered. I know how much I've gone through, and at the end of the day, one of the things that you just said was, as someone that's healed, I think anyone that understands healing understands that healing is an ongoing process. It's not something that, you're healed and so we're there. No, healing has levels. So you can heal from a certain situation and understand that tomorrow something else is going to come up that you're going to have to heal from again. So it's keeping your mind open to understanding that I was born on purpose. I was born for purpose. I was born by purpose. And I have to keep in the forefront of my mind who I am. Because the more I remind myself of who I am, I'm going to keep showing up as that person every time. I think what we lose sight of is who we are. And so we keep trying to be something that we're not. And when you keep trying to be something that you're not, resilience is hard to find because you're trying to be something that you've seen. And if I can't identify with that, I can't be that. And so the only true thing that I have is who I am. And it may not be perfect. It may not be right. It may not always get it right. But at the end of the day, if I can keep the course of being true to myself, at the end of the day, I can ask myself one question. Erica, did you do the best you could have? And that's all that's asked of us.
Ooh, man, that sounds like part of my broken record and part of my upbringing. Did you give your all? Whether it was school, whether it was work, hobbies, whatever it was, playing a board game. But did you show up as Damon and give your 100% best?
Absolutely.
And like you said, I believe that because I talked to my daughter about it. Like, I'm not expecting you're not going to pass everything. You're not going to win at everything. There's always going to be someone who's better than you, someone who's a little more talented than you. But if you look yourself in the mirror and say, you know what, I did my best. And if I
Yes.
look at you and you telling me that, then you know what? I'm proud of you. And that's part of, again, you want to encourage that healing and that growth. And you really
Mhm.
want to help with the transition and activation, if you will, of
Mhm.
a person or a human being, right?
Mhm.
And this question is going to be for all of you ladies. And I'm going to start, you know, uh, pretty much like, Dr. Carter, you talked about healing, and Leann, resilience, Erica about purpose. So how do you each define that critical transition from just um, every day I'm just surviving, to checking off tasks and enduring, to becoming that person that's thriving on purpose, where you work, your family and faith feel integrated and intentional. And I'll start with you. We'll go in reverse this time. I'll start with you, Erica.
Oh, let me say, let's look at what survival is. And I always say I'm not a big fan of the word survivor because I feel like it keeps you in a constant mode of reaching, grasping for straws. Because when you're surviving, really what you're trying to do is stay afloat. You know,
Mm,
any lifeguard will tell you if someone is scared enough, you have to let them go because they'll pull you down. That's what that survivor mentality is. That mentality is to keep you always looking for the next thing to keep you afloat. And I think that mentality is detrimental moving
mm,
forward, trying to own who you are, to take ownership of who you are. Having a survivor mentality is almost detrimental. You have to tell yourself from Jump Street, I have to get out from where I'm sinking, from where I'm going under at. I have to get out from that point. I have to get my mentality from that point of this situation being this bad, and I'm constantly telling myself I have to get from here. Once we figure out who we are, we begin to understand that there are certain things in life that are essential or regular. And so those things, some of those things, and one of the things that we don't like to deal with is pain.
mm.
And our pain has
That's true.
purpose.
Facts.
Sometimes
That's facts.
we hold on to pain so much that it becomes trauma, and
Mhm.
so then we hold on to the trauma and we have this survival mentality, and so now we use that trauma to define who we are. But here's the thing, the pain was meant to produce something in us, and so we have to understand that who we are, what we go through, produces a mentality, it produces a perspective, it produces an identity, it produces the purpose that we're all looking for. But we've got to get past trying to hold on to what I'm dealing with. What you're
Mhm.
dealing with, and I'm not negating that what you're dealing with is powerful. I'm not negating that what you're dealing with might be heavy, but at the same time, that thing wasn't something that you were supposed to set up shop around.
Mm.
It wasn't meant that you would go and build a house there. It was meant
Right.
that you pass through. It was meant that
Right.
that situation that you go through, you pass through, and that mentality has to be something that we can adapt to understand that whatever I'm dealing with, whatever I'm going through, wherever I'm starting from, it's a transition process.
It's
It's
transition.
not
Yep.
where I build my house. It's not where I build my focus. It's not where I build my purpose around. I have to understand that to get to the other side, I got to keep moving.
I love that analogy, and that was an incredible kickoff to that question. But Leanne, I'm going to allow you to please transition to that. Like, how do that critical transition from just surviving to thriving on purpose, for whether you're at work or your family, and or your faith, and really wanting to feel integrated in that. How do you view that, and how do you see that?
I'd like to just start by saying, thank you to Erica. That was an amazing response to that question and a great start for this part of our conversation. I lived the first half of my life in survival mode, just trying to keep everything from falling apart, meeting expectations, just getting through this week or this season or this demand. And it wasn't until I, started doing the healing work and really started to focus on, like Erica mentioned before, your why, your values, and how you want to show up in the world, that it went from surviving to thriving with purpose. I could take all of my past and see it as information, so that I could grow, as opposed to focusing on, like she said, the victim mentality or the survivor mentality. I use those things more as voices and tools, or stories that I didn't focus on to keep me stuck. I focused on them for fuel to take me forward, as lessons learned, as knowledge. And, I even mentioned to my husband the other night, I don't struggle aging, because I see aging as going into life with knowledge. And so that just really helps me keep going forward and making sure that I'm strong in my why, I'm strong in my core values and who I am and how I show up, and taking those lessons to go forward and learning how to listen to my body and what it's telling me. If it's telling me it's time to rest, it's time to rest, and not feeling guilty about that.
That's good.
Okay. Woo. Man, look, ladies and gentlemen, I see some more of you have come in. Drop a hi or something in the comments. And if you got here, y'all a little too late, but don't go nowhere. You want to watch this on the playback, because these powerful women are really dropping some gems tonight. And I want to close out this portion or the segment about really defining the transition and activation, if you will, with Dr. Carter. And I want to leave it to you as well, just answering that question, of defining that critical transition from just surviving to thriving on purpose, and where, whether it be in your work or your family or your faith, to have that feeling that you're integrated and intentional.
Yeah, I think that for me, if you are a goal-oriented person and, you like to write things down, you like to have an idea of your goals. One of the things that my journey taught me and my experiences taught me is to hold your plans loosely, because at the end of the day, and especially if you believe in God and you believe that He directs your path, then you know that some things were meant for your good. Like the delay was meant for your good. And the title of my book is How to Overcome Betrayal, Delay, and Loss. So for the delay part, and what I'm finding even still now, is that delay isn't delay at all. I think it's the time restraint that we put against ourselves. We could be so unkind to ourselves by feeling like, oh, I have to have this accomplished by this age. I have to be here by this age. I have to, have this type of career or make this type of salary by this age. And really that delay is all a part of the journey, because there are things that you need to learn along the way. There are lessons that you need to learn. There are, people that maybe you need to release, right? Or you need to meet the right people in your life and join with them. But a lot of times you could just be so harsh on yourself. And so that's when I go into like self-love and and talking positively to yourself and saying good things and knowing that you are here for a purpose. I think both Leann and Erica touched on your why. You know, you are here for a purpose. This is a part of your journey. It didn't look like the way that you thought it would look, right? Right. Like,
Right.
it wasn't just a straight A to point B. You had some hills and some valleys and all of those things. But when you get quiet, and especially in those valleys, you know, when you get quiet and you listen to God and you pray and you ask for wisdom and you ask for all of these things, guidance and all of these things, all of those things will be revealed to you. You know, like I said, if you write things down, I like to write things down. I like to journal. So if I look at my goals and everything, I'm also looking at the things that where I went wrong. You know, like they talk about a business plan. Your business plan is not something that you just create in the beginning when you first start into business, but you're always looking at it. You're always reevaluating it. You're always saying, I can't get to a year-long goal unless I look at my 3-month point, my 6-month point, my 9-month point, and then how I'm going to get to a year. So it's the little things in between that gets you to that larger goal, and you're not just going to jump from 0 to 100, you know. So be patient with yourself, be kind with yourself, and continue to show up and be committed to the things that you have and the things that God has for you to do.
Man, this I got the goosebumps, and I got this energy right now because you know what you kind of closed off on really leads into, because each one of you kind of built into this where you're integrating right now at this point in my mind in this conversation, you're integrating like those life areas. And you know, for many listeners, Dr. Carter, the challenge really isn't just one area, right? And in the last conversation, you know, Erica so kindly started us, you know, kind of moving us through these points. But it's not just one area, but it's how you integrate, or the integration of a demanding career. You know, you have this family life that really weighs on, especially our women. Women are the backbone and the foundation. You know, your minds are going 1,000 times more than a man. We might get one idea out, and y'all done went through 1,000. You know, and I mean that we didn't create it this way, but that's just how it is. But you know, Dr. Carter, I want to ask you, and I want to start with you again, going in reverse. Drawing on your clinical experience and personal, I mean, we can add that in. You know, what is the most common self-sabotaging behavior? Because I think that a lot of us have a way of self-sabotaging sometime. And I'm curious to hear from you. What is one that maybe you observe when women of faith try to merge maybe professional identity and their personal mission, and then there's this hiccup. And I'm just curious, like, have you seen that, or where have you seen that most in your career and in your journey?
Yeah. I think that understanding that you have to take time for yourself and it's important. I think that by nature, women are nurturing, and we have this thing where we say yes to everything. And so really, and as I get older, I'm more and more comfortable with saying no, with understanding that I can't, as much as I would love to be at certain places and show up, I can't be at everything, right? Also for me as a mom, and as a mom of 5, there were some things that I used to do or participate in. And for me, understanding that I can't participate in those things in the same way, but that my family is my priority. And that's okay too, you know, because you can have FOMO, right? Fear of missing out, or your girls are over here doing this, and you know, you would like to go, but there is a purpose in writing your own home, you know, of you being that example and showing up for your kids, and you know, that being a part of your assignment, right, for that time. Because I think because it's so natural, we don't look at that as part of our assignment sometimes. It's just like just a part of our makeup, who we are. I'm a mom,
Yeah.
you know, and so you
Yeah.
do everything that you possibly can to give your kids, you know, the best support and the best life. But no is a complete answer, and it does not need a
It's
statement or an explanation
nothing else
behind
behind
it.
it. I know that's
And
right.
you can be empowered to say no because you
Mm,
know that you need that time for yourself,
mm.
and not in a
That's
selfish way.
no,
You
and that,
know,
I was just gonna say because then the way you just said that, and I swear to you, I feel like my mother was talking to me because that was like a part of her mantra. Like I don't need to know what part of that don't you understand, the N or the O. Like and it was self-explanatory. But I do want to ask, and from that, I want to ask Leann and Erica, like, what is the non-negotiable then? Is it a structural change? Is it a boundary or a habit, some type of system that that is essential maybe, for a professional woman to stop balancing and blending, these critical areas of her life. And Leanne, I'll start with you on that.
I want to start to, and Shawnise definitely hit the nail on the head with boundaries and being able to say no, and that being a complete sentence and not feeling guilt. Because I think with women, there's this thing everybody talks about, work-life balance.
Mm,
And we don't get burnt out or get out of burnout by balancing better. The way that we can get out of burning out is by having those boundaries and being able to set that in place in a way where it starts from the time you wake up in the morning until the time you go to bed, but you set boundaries. It says from wake up to when I start work, this is my priority, these are my boundaries. From the time I end work to now I'm entering family time, this is when family time begins. So I'm not going to be checking emails, I'm not going to be answering phone calls. This is family time, and that's what that time is for me. And you have to make sure you're not being half present for your family.
that's good.
And mixing the day and having it kind of bleed together. I think that's where a lot of people, or a lot of women, is this kind of like role bleed, where we're trying to be both a career woman and a mom and strong in our faith. And I think it just all bleeds together if we don't have those good boundaries in place. So I kind of, have worked on having good, solid habits to where I can switch those roles.
Okay.
Making sure that I take some good deep breaths when I switch from one role to another. Washing my hands and kind of washing off the day so that I don't bring whatever stress is going on in my job or my career into my home. So just kind of putting these habits into place kind of keeps that burnout from happening, because you are now being present for your family when it's family time. You're present for your job when it's job time, and you're present
Right.
for yourself when it's time to rest.
I love that, because that's for anyone. Because I'm sitting here and I'm just thinking about it as you're talking about it, and it's true. I know I find myself sometimes, you come in, you have that day at work or whatever it may be, and you come in the door and you still carrying it with you. Or my wife will come in and you know what Erica said today, and it's like, okay, hi babe, how you doing? Yeah, and it's true. We're human, but I do like that, creating habits that really help you put a pause and, okay, I'm stopping here and now I'm entering here. And I really love that, because, and I'm saying that, gentlemen, for those of you, you can apply this to your dynamic as well, because I think it really helps when you're trying to uplift, your spouse. Like I said, because our women are really carrying so much more weight, and I don't know if that's by design or whatever, but just from a mental. Like I said, when I said it started, my wife sometimes I could be talking about, I don't know, this piece of paper. My wife done moved to this piece of paper. She on a book, a magazine. She got her girlfriends on the phone. She got TV show going. And I'm like, what are you doing? And she looking at me like, what? And I see you all laughing, but you understand what I'm saying. And last but not least, Erica, I want to ask you too, coming from that 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 space that you're in, like what is a non-negotiable structural change for you that you feel may be essential for a professional woman uh to stop balancing and start blending their critical areas of their life?
I think I'm going to feed off of what Dr. Carter and Leann said, and add to that establishing truth and
Mm,
silencing the noise. I think it's important when you're creating boundaries and when you're, um, you know, making these habits that you establish what truth is. I think we have so much noise as to what truth is nowadays because we have social media, we have people in our ears telling us, well, this is what women do, or this is what men do, or this is what's acceptable of you, this is what's expected of you as a woman or as a man. And I think we as individuals have to push back away from the table and establish what truth is. Who am I? What am I expected to do? What am I called to do? What is necessary for me to succeed? And those that are primary to me, those that are purpose to me, those that are important to me to succeed. And once I've established what truth is, silence the noise that shows up that I have to do what you want me to do, that I
mm,
have to say what you want me to say, that I have to be where you want me to be, that I have to go where you want me to go. I don't have to do any of that stuff because my truth has been established and I already understand if I don't feel like going, I don't have to. If I don't want
mm,
to say it, I don't have to. If I don't want to do it, I don't have to because the truth has been established in my home, in myself, within my mind, within my family, wherever that truth needs to be established. I think that is something that we all need to do, establish the truth that's and silence the noise because it
mm,
allows you then to make good decisions, not just for you but for everything pertaining to you, and it allows you to make
mhm,
sound decisions because now I'm not making a decision based on the fact of my sister or Dr. Carter, don't mind me. Dr. Carter, who might seem like Superwoman to me because she got 5 kids, a working business, thriving business, and she still look
right,
good. She had time to put on makeup and look good tonight on this show. And hear me
Thank
over here
you.
trying to be Dr. Carter, and God's like, baby, that's not your role. That's
right,
just not your
right,
role. So we have to
right,
establish truth for ourselves and understand that I love Dr. Carter and what she do, and I'm gonna let Dr. Carter be Dr. Carter, and Erica be Erica,
Amen.
right,
and we all
right,
gonna
right.
be happy.
I love that. I really do, because it is just be you, right? And be in your space and really
Mhm.
accept the integration of that area in your life, right? And be the best version of yourself.
And
But
Damon,
then,
if I may,
yeah, yes, please.
if I may, I want to add one thing in there too. I think because sometimes we struggle under that load because sometimes even as women, we see successful or what we think successful looks like, and we say, "Oh, she's
Mm,
married, she has this, she has that, she has the other," and so we live our lives drowning in survival, trying to live up to something that we were never called to. And so
ooh,
it's very important to establish truth for you. Even as a
mm,
man, even as a young person, it's
yes,
important to
indeed.
establish truth for you because you will drown under the
Mm,
expectation of someone else's life. I'll
mm.
finish that.
Listen, that leads perfectly into this really where we were going in the next segment. It looked like we lost
Oh dear.
Leann for a minute. We're gonna wait for her to come back. But it leads into really um that fear, right?
Mhm.
Overcoming that level of fear. Like you say, sometimes people, you brought a great analogy. Sometimes people walk into a room, you don't know Dr. Carter from a hole in the wall. But just because you what you see or like she said, to be as successful. And again, we're fearful of this woman's success because she is a mother. She is, making moves and doing all of these great things. Kind of makes us kind of cave inside, right? And I want to. It's like fear and burnout, I guess, at the same time. And I want to ask you both. And Leann is back. I wanted to start with her, but I'm going to start with you, Dr. Carter. Like, we know sometimes the biggest fears are that you hear a lot of times, I don't have time. I'm not enough. Like in that instance, I think what Erica was talking about, when people look at other people, or what will people think of me, right? I think those are some of our biggest fears. If you ladies could, I want each of you, if you can kind of give our audience, like, I want to give like an actionable item or something that they can do themselves that can help them not be as fearful, not be as afraid, and really say no to the fear. And if you have one that you can share, please go ahead, and I'll start with you, Dr. Carter. One actionable item that our audience can use. I think that'd be really helpful as we enter into 2026.
I would say to try again. Like that's an actionable item. You know, and you take all of the things that you learned, right? And again, what I say or what I consider are things that I did not succeed at. It was a failure for me, but I desensitized myself to the word failure because I feel like if I learned something in the process, then it was all worth it. Absolutely. So take what you learned and try again. But this time you're going to try it with renewed strength, with renewed focus, with more wisdom, because you know what you went through and how you survived through that the first time. And so now you can show up stronger, but you have to try again. So and I said this, and I said that I would not say this tonight, but I end up saying this every time that I do an interview. But you miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. So it scares me more to not do it and to sit there because I've succumbed to fear versus me going out and trying it to see what happens. What if I do succeed? What if it is good? What if other people do learn in the process? Even from my failures, what if other people learn from that? Then it was all worth it. So
you ain't never lied on that. I totally agree with you on that one. You got to take that shot. I don't care if it's the worst shot on the court. Absolutely. Take it anyway. You have to keep plugging away, and I really love that. Keep trying. Leann, I want to ask you, I want to transition and allow you really to speak to that, kind of overcoming fear, and if you could share maybe one actionable item, for our audience to kind of break that barrier, what would it be?
As a life coach, we're very forward facing when we're working with clients and future facing. So we're not really focusing on the past, and we're looking more towards, instead of focusing like, I don't have time or I'm too far behind. What really helped me when I was starting over at 50 was remembering my life and the strengths that I had developed and remembering that I had those strengths. So when I was looking at going back to school in my 50s, while struggling with brain fog and memory loss and having this huge fear over I'm not going to be able to remember this information, was I've done this before. I went to
Oh dear.
I think we oh dear. Yeah, I think we've lost Leann once again.
Oh dear.
We're gonna go ahead, and I'm gonna allow her to go ahead and log out and log back in. But Erica, I'm gonna transition to you. Same question. One actionable item that you feel, you can share with our audience that they can apply, so kind of get over that fear, break that barrier?
I'm a bit of a maverick, and I'm usually a little rebellious. So I'm gonna say question it.
Okay.
I have a term that I use with my mentees a lot. Let's do the math. You know, let's figure out what this fear is really trying to stop me from doing. I know for me, fear has been a factor in my journey, and it's an active participant. And he does not seem to be leaving the journey. He seems like he is here to stay. And that's fine, because as I overcome things, I just throw it in my backpack and I keep it moving. But I'm learning that fear is not as intimidating as he'd like us to believe that he is. And sometimes you just got to question it, you know. So if I don't do it, what is going to happen? If I don't
Right.
take the shot, what's the worst that could happen? If I do take the shot, what's the worst that could happen? What they gonna say? What they gonna do?
Right.
I think we have the right. We've earned it to question. Question your fears. Find out, do the math, and figure out. And I think when you start to question fear, it changes your perspective. Dr. Carter touched on it a bit, because I believe there's such a thing as a negative positive. We talk about positives and negative all the time, but I think there's such a thing as a negative positive, or a positive negative, because if something produces something good, a good outcome, can it really be framed as a negative?
Right.
And so I
Right.
think a lot of times we look at the negative thing and think, oh no, woe is me. Oh, this can't
Right.
be so. The sky is falling. But here's the thing. At the end of that thing, I'm going to be better. At
Yeah.
the end of that thing, I'm
Yeah.
gonna be stronger. So wait, is this really a negative or something
Right.
trying to distract me from becoming my best self?
Coming
So
yourself.
we've got to
Yeah.
learn to question things, because sometimes it's just it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity to become better disguised as fear. And fear will be loud. And that's what I noticed about that brother. He on the trip with us and he loud. Oh, when I tell you that brother loud, he's so loud. He louder than everybody. He louder than faith. He louder than reassurance. He louder than resist. He is so loud. But sometimes I think if we
Yes,
would just
indeed.
quiet him and say, now, wait a minute now, hold on, hush. Because what's the worst that could really happen to me if I took this chance? And when we take
True.
that stance and regain our authority in those situations, fear begins to go, well, actually nothing. I just didn't want you to
Yeah.
do it.
Yeah.
And so that's my statement. I say question it. I say do the math and figure out what is the worst that could happen. At the end of the
I
day,
know.
we here now. We out here
Listen.
now. I done
Listen.
showed up, so like we might as well go on and take the shot. We on the game field anyway. If I'm here and I got the ball, might as well use it. So what's the worst
That's
that can
right.
happen?
That's right. Listen, and that shows up tonight because that was like perfect because Leann unfortunately has had some hiccups, but she keeps showing up because she on the field, right? It's like you can't make this up, right? You can't script this, right? And that's all a part of what we were talking about. And Leann, I wanna come back to you. I want to allow you to finish, your statement because you were really right. You were taking us up the mountain, but like I said, but you here, you back, and you showing up. So I want to allow you. I want to give you your time. So go ahead and finish that, actionable item that you wanted to share with our audience.
Thank you. I don't know why the gremlins seem to pick me tonight, but it's okay. I'm going to keep coming in as often as need be. As I started to say, if I had allowed fear to keep me from enrolling in school in my 50s, I wouldn't be here today having this conversation with you all, because I either would have returned back to working in the legal field or maybe gone in a completely different direction. Instead, I let my fear empower me, and I reminded myself, I've done this before, I can do this again. And even if maybe it's not the same, as we get older, it's harder to learn. So I would just tell myself, okay, well, if I can't remember somebody's name because brain fog has set in or memory loss, I can learn new ways to remember things and show up the best that I can, without shame or guilt. And, I like what Erica was saying, is just questioning, like, what's the worst that can happen if I show up? And I have a thing that hangs on my refrigerator that says, what would you attempt to do if you knew you couldn't fail? And just keep showing up. And like now there's this commercial with the Olympics and this little gremlin.
Man, see, this is what I tell you. With live, you can't go wrong. But the devil stay busy, and I'm telling you, when you bring in positive energy and you bring in positive light, this is what he does. But we can't be stopped. I don't care what he does tonight. This energy can't be stopped because this has been a powerful conversation. You women are phenomenal, and I thank you for just allowing me to use Two Mics, a platform to help spread your word and your energy and your message. And listen, you have no idea how filled I am right now. So I'm really thankful. But I do want to ask, we're coming up on the back end of the conversation, and everything that we've talked about. We've kind of gone through the stages of integrating in your life, overcoming fear and burnout, and now I think there's that, what we like to call like that bounce back wisdom, if you will. And usually, that bounce back wisdom kind of comes from moments where, what I like to think of, we might not make it, right? Again, that's on the further end of fear. And but there's also that feeling of when you do bounce back, you're like, man, look at me. Yeah, look at this here, look at God, right? Is there a story that maybe resonates with you all that you can share, like coming from a massive failure, and was there like a single, I see Erica, you smiling. Is there a single like word or the first thing that comes to your mind that you can share? Because I think that's important. Because I know, like I said, I know for me in my moment, it was like thank you, Jesus. Yes, I finally, with your help me get over. So thank you was for me, but I'm curious to know, Erica, is there a moment or a story that you can share with the word that really made you feel like this is it? You bounce back.
I think the story that I'll use, and thank you for asking that, because I think the story I'll use from this point on is the time when I almost died. I remember I was in the hospital, and I'm anemic. Oh, I was anemic, however they want to say it. And my blood count was low. It was low. I think when I was in the hospital, it was 0.01, something like that. And so I remember being in ICU, and the nurse came in and he said to me, they're expecting you to stroke out or have a heart attack and die. They're not expecting you to leave this hospital tonight alive. And I remember that night thinking, no, I'm not done yet.
Right.
It wasn't that I was told anything. It wasn't that I was reassured at that moment. Because again, yes, I'm a big God girl. But I remember having an assurance that I wasn't done yet. And I remember coming out of that process. And I remember I had surgery. Long story short, I had taken out 28 fibroids. Oranges and grapefruits, they told me, right? And so I woke up the next morning, and I believe I heard God say to me, Erica, if you don't believe in you, no one will. And I left that hospital telling myself that people will tell you what they want you to believe about you.
Mm-mm.
And if you're not careful, they will make you believe it. But if you are not adamant to stand on who you are and what you've been called to do, they will leave you in a place where they will kill you.
Whew.
And that is the story that I realized I
Amen
came
to
out of
that.
that. When a lot of people, when I tell you there were, I'm hushing. When I tell you there were droves of doctors coming into my room on a shift basis, I mean 5 at a time, 5 at a time, just like, oh, and this patient, you know, we don't expect her to be here in the morning. And I mean, here I am about to be 50, what, 10 years later, baby, who dying? Dying where?
Right. Yeah.
We've got to question the things that life will try to tell us is true. And if we don't learn how to question things and say, nah, I don't think I believe that about me though. And I don't have to feel like I need to believe that. I just need to know that it's true. I think a lot of times we miss it because we tell ourselves, I need to feel like this is like this adds up with what
That's
I'm saying.
true.
Our emotions will deceive us.
Yeah,
And if we
that's so
keep
true.
letting our emotions deceive us, we will not move forward. Sometimes emotions have very little to do with moving forward. Truth is all we need to move forward.
That love. Whew. I can't even, because you and I share a similar story, and that's why mine is thank you. Because like you said, I should have been removed. I shouldn't be here
All right.
today. So I say mine is thank you, because I thank the Lord for actually knowing what was in my heart and actually hearing me. You know,
Yeah.
say, when the doctor said to my wife, "Look, I think it's time for you. If you're a spiritual woman, it's time for you to pray, because we don't know if your husband's gonna make it tomorrow." And I sat there, watched my wife and my daughter cry, and I said, "Lord," I said, "I know you have to know what's in my heart. You have to know that there's something better for me. There's something else that I'm supposed to be doing."
Yes.
And he brought me through it, and here I am. Like you said, it's 12 years later for me. So I
Come
do
on.
say thank you. Do you
Amen.
understand what I'm saying? So it is possible. But I do want to go ahead and transition. Leann has made it back. I'm going to transition to you, Dr. Carter. Same thing. Is there a moment or a bounce back moment that you can share where you may have hit rock bottom or massive failure or some type of trauma in your life that you were able to help you kind of change and lead in the field and what you're doing today?
I would say actually, I learned from my patients. And so if we want to go like the research route, having a positive attitude or just having a sense of peace that everything is going to work out for your good. Like you have to know that there is a greater being, right? For me, that's God. And that there's a greater being that knows more than you do, right?
Right.
That's working things out on your behalf. And so I see this materializing in my field with people who I work with and rehabilitate them. So people who have had strokes, global strokes, who have had brain injury, traumatic brain injury, all of those things, I watch them show up for therapy every day and they are happy. And some of them, like I said, I'm a speech pathologist, so I work with people who have limited communication skills, verbal communication skills. So they can't speak, or if they can speak, they can only say a few words, but they are going to gesture, they're going to draw, they're going to write it down, they're going to, and they can show up with a smile every day, like anxious, excited to be there, excited that they have another chance at life, but more so than that, the possibility of them improving. And then there's research to show that when people have positive attitudes, that their rehabilitation process takes a turn. It's a whole different thing. Some people were even cured from cancer, and they traced it all the way back to their attitudes and their positivity and believing in something. So for me, I would say faith. And it convicted me because I'm like, here I am with all of my things that I have on my mind, right? My kids and
Right.
my whatever it is that I have. And here it is, these people are here and they are going through some of the toughest
Mm,
things, learning how to
right.
walk all over again, learning how to talk
Right.
all over again, and they can show up with a positive attitude and ready to win and ready to see this the smallest bit of gain that will give them
Right.
a glimpse of hope. So
That that inspires me. Just listening to it, it has to inspire you. Like you say, you're taking for granted some of the things that is just so easy for you to do, but you have individuals that are really working so hard, like you said, just to make the smallest of gains. And I think you have to be inspired by that and really recalibrate in yourself, where you are and where you're at and the things that you should be thankful for. And how can you apply that,
mhm.
that energy and that angst into your space. And I think that's a great story. And Leanne, I want to ask you the same as we close out, this segment of bouncing back to wisdom. Like, is there a single piece of wisdom or a story? I mean, that maybe you've experienced that now you use as a positive anchor in your life.
Absolutely. If people had told me a decade ago that I was going to be starting over from scratch,
Mm.
I wouldn't have believed anyone. I had to file bankruptcy.
Wow.
I ended up getting divorced from a 20-year marriage.
Mm.
I changed careers. My kids were grown and moved out. So all of these things happened within a 3-year period.
Wow.
And so
Mm,
I was completely starting over. So for me, it's, starting over at 45 didn't break me, it
Wow.
mm,
revealed me. And I
Mm.
looked at each
I
of
like
those
that.
challenges as a teacher. In my divorce, my career shifts, financial collapse, I had to step back and look at my relationship with money. Um, I had to look at what that forced me to really confront about what I had been carrying about the importance of this climbing the corporate ladder. And that's where I felt my identity was. My identity was a wife, my identity was a mother. And then all of a sudden, all of these things shifted. And I was having to figure out where my identity was. So, who am I now that I'm living alone for the first time in my life at 45? My kids were off doing their things in their lives, and it was just me. And so, it was looking at those things from a different perspective and reminding myself, you're not too old, it's not too late. Your story is far from over. And
mhm.
that has really helped me in when I work with my clients that are in that transitional phase, whether it's starting over after a divorce or empty nest syndrome, that your story isn't over. It's just at a new season.
Mm,
And to take all of those lessons that you've learned and put them to a new direction in life. And so it just really helped me look at things like it was a teacher of my resilience. It taught me about boundaries. It taught me self worth. It taught me about possibility.
mm, mhm. Well, I really appreciate you sharing that. And man, all of all of this conversation, everything you ladies have shared tonight, it applies to all of us as human beings, and it's been really powerful. And before we go, I want to thank you all for sharing, your vulnerability and your strength. I think that's something that we rarely or rarely ever talk about these, the yin and the yang, if you will. And you ladies have really helped bring this story together tonight. And before we go, I want to allow you all to please share your social media, website, where we can find you, where we can have our audience go out and support you. We will make sure we take all of that information. We will update the show notes and add all of that information to it. We really want, everyone to get out and get behind you all. And I'm going to start with you, Leann. If you want to go ahead and take a moment to go ahead and share your social media or anything, and if you want to share any closing words or parting words before we close the show out.
I'll start with the parting words. Going forward, I just want to remind people that it's okay. You can take that one step forward. It doesn't have to be perfect. Do it messy. And then as far as where people can find me, the best place to find me is on my website, which is findingresiliencewithleann.com. I'm a podcast host. So my podcast is Happiness on Tap. And you can find that on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcast, all your favorite podcasting platforms. I like to bring on people who have changed my life and continue to impact my life, and share their stories. Because I think when we can connect with someone, and we can see that possibility from somebody else's struggle, that is what I strive to do in all of the guests that I bring on. Plus, I like to bring on people who can help provide people with tips and tools that can help them change their life going forward. Easy steps. So those are the two best places to find me. Also LinkedIn.
Listen, ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't, check out, really seriously, check out the work that Leann does. I have been blessed to make her acquaintance. We've done great conversations. She's been here on the show, before, and I'll put the link for all of these ladies as well as their information below from their previous episode and conversations here on Two Mics Up. But Leann, thank you again so much. Like I tell everyone, you're always welcome to come back. Any new projects or anything, any ideas, conversations you want, I'm happy to cross promote and platform with you. So thank you for taking time out tonight for joining us. I want to go ahead now, and I'm going to transfer over to Erica Vanessa. Erica, please go ahead and take a moment and let everybody, come on, sis, now. Let everybody know where you at, where we can find you at, what we can do to support you. Come on, what's going on? Talk to us.
I think the easiest place to find me is my website, B.E.Coming If you want to find me on social media, it's Erica Vanessa everywhere. We have a life conversation series that we do every Monday evening at 7 p.m. If you go through the website, BE.Coming If you go through the website, you can register. You just have to register to be a part of it. It is free. It's a conversation where we talk about life and we figure out how we can move God from religion to reality. So, we just try to put him in a real life perspective, in a real life lens for what we're dealing with. And as far as closing thoughts, I just want to encourage each and every one of us to establish truth, establish truth about who you are. Do the work about who you are. I think that is what is going to make moving forward easier. It's going to answer a lot more questions. I think the problem that exists in our society today is we have too many carbon copies and not enough originals. And if we were to take the time to focus on finding out who we are, we'll realize that the answers to some of the questions that we go around asking people, whether we should do this and whether we should do that and what they think of this and what they think of that, those answers are already within us because we know who we are. We know what we want. We know what we like. We know what we're called to, but sometimes we feel like we need someone else's validation. And if you lock in on who you are, you're going to realize that validation is not necessary.
Look, I can't even. Look. All right, you that right there, sis. All right, you got to stop now. You're hurting them. You hurt them and you hit them too hard. Listen, last but definitely not least, Dr. Shawnise Carter, please take a moment. Any last words where our audience can go out and find you once again, go out and support you, your book, whatever it may be. Please take a moment to go ahead and share that with us before we go.
So I am going to start off with parting words, and I'm going to borrow something from my field, which is residual skills. And so I want everyone to just kind of think about what residual skills that you have. So all of the trauma that you've been through, all of the things that you've experienced, what did it leave you with? At the core, who are you? When we look at someone and we do an evaluation, we want to get a baseline. We want to see what residual skills they have. So if the right side of your body is paralyzed, can you use your left side? If you're unable to speak, can you understand? If you're unable to write, can you gesture? Whatever it is that you can use, that is what we look at with people, and then we build on that. And so I would ask the same for you, that you, regardless of what you feel may have been stripped away from you, the body is very automatic. Try putting some water in your mouth and not swallowing it. After a while, your body is going to automatically swallow it. Your body blinks several times a day. Our eyes blink, and it's automatic. It's out of our control. And so really start to look at who you are at your core and build on those skills. You have everything that you need inside of you already. It may need to be sharpened. You may not have used it for a while. Maybe you need to brush off a skill, dust it off, but you have everything that you need inside of you. And where you can find me, you can go to www.sccollabs.com. And that kind of brings like the consulting and my home care business and speaking and all of those things together, all under one umbrella. So from there, you can get to my book as well.
Listen here, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know about you, but I'm gonna go ahead and take a moment, and I think I'm just gonna raise a glass. I'm gonna raise the glass to these amazing women who have been here today, that have elevated us and really just kind of just helped us to grow in this space. And I cannot say thank you enough to all of you. But we are now, at that time where we're gonna get ready to close out. But I do want to share a couple of other things with you all before we actually get out of here. You can, follow Two Mics Up, you know, anywhere you like. You can follow, like, subscribe. You can watch the show. We are just about everywhere. IG, Facebook, Twitter, or X, or whatever they call it now, YouTube. You can follow me on LinkedIn. Please take a moment just to watch a video, watch a couple of conversations, like, share, subscribe. We are a platform that really tries, or really, in my hope and my belief, is to bring you conversations just like this, things that sometimes you may have a question about, or sometimes you're looking for an outlet, or someone to actually, who's sharing their experience, which is an experience of yours. And now you have someone that you can contact, you can reach out to. You have a live lifeline to be able to go ahead and contact, individuals like tonight's panel, who are all exceptional in what they do. So please go ahead and take a moment to do that. If you want to follow the show, you can do that. Like I said, IG, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, all that. Two Mics Up, just about everywhere you want to go. If you want to follow me, you can follow me at Dame D NYDC on IG, Facebook, and LinkedIn. We are a 4-time winning talk show, having real talk with live guests like this. And you can follow us online at www.twomicsup.com. Send us in requests, whatever you want to hear us talk about. I think we can, my team and I think we can pull that together and bring it together and make it happen. And I just want to leave you all with one thing as we close out tonight. This has been far greater of a conversation than I could have ever imagined. We've gone, deep, from surviving to thriving. We've heard powerful wisdom from Dr. Shawnise Carter, Leann Herron, and Erica Vanessa about resilience and elevation. If you take one thing away from tonight's show, let it be this: you were never meant to live life on empty. You were built to grow, you were built to rise, you're built to thrive on purpose. Remember, every challenge you face, it's not a stop sign. It's a signal that you're being prepared for something greater. You're being prepared for more. So keep moving forward with faith, with focus, and with that fire to become everything you were created to be. Big shout out again to our amazing guests for sharing their hearts, and to all of you for tuning in tonight, watching us live and on the playback. I really appreciate you being a part of the Two Mics Up community. I'm your humble host, Damon Cunningham. And until next time we meet, please keep pushing, keep believing, and keep thriving, because your story isn't over yet. It's just getting started. And like we do at the end of each and every show, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to leave you with a couple of things. May you all stay safe, stay blessed. Mike's out.
.007